So let's now answer the real question. How can I make applying whatever it is that you want to learn, applying NLP, applying problem solving, applying being a really great communicator, or whatever particular aspect that you are learning or looking to develop at the moment. How can I make applying X fun, easy, and automatic? Now, do you see how that question then changes the direction so that you begin to notice for and look for those criteria, those things that make it easy, fun, and automatic. So that puts you down a different rabbit hole, which is a lot more productive typically than just looking for why isn't this so? Why am I struggling to apply it? And within that, there are a couple of things I want to suggest. First, simple strategy. We've got reflect, define, design, schedule, review. So if you follow this 5-step process that I'm about to share with you here, you can think of it as a mini strategy. It will be really, really useful. So reflect. What do I mean by reflect? Take a moment to think about what's been your attitude to practice so far while applying. What are the results that you have produced? Where are you, for example, finding it difficult to apply or not applying it in the way that you want? By reviewing and thinking about this and looking at the results you produce, you're going to quickly recognize what's the pattern. And I'm not talking about a big pattern, I'm talking about the pattern specific for you and what you want to achieve, which may be different from me or somebody else who's watching this video. Second, define. And define what you want instead. And when you want to define what exactly you want to be able to do when you talk about applying it. And here's one of the critical ideas to get. Don't define it as, I want to get better. That's too broad. It's unspecified. It's pretty useless as a descriptor in the context of you improving your skill or applying in a particular area. Define what you want specifically. So I'll give you an example here just so you understand and have an idea of what I've got in my mind, and hopefully you'll start picking up in yours. And that is this notion that somebody comes in and they say, I want to have more confidence at work. Okay? And that's what they say in terms of they want. That is pretty broad, and we don't even know what they really mean. But when we get into it and we ask some useful questions, if you're familiar with the meta model and our recent program, for example, Question Lab, you'll know that by asking great questions, we can begin to really hone in on what it is that this person wants. And in this case, it might, when we go through several iterations of that, define it as, in my 9 to 10 a.m. meeting, I want to be able to present my 10-minute meeting update clearly, succinctly, and with a feeling of relaxation in my body. Now, do you see how that definition and that goal descriptor is much more specified than I want to feel more confident at work? And do you recognize, which I'm sure you do, is that if you were helping this person achieve that goal, how you would go about it would be quite different if you're trying to pursue the broad level goal of I want to be more confident at work, which really you have no idea. You'd have to imagine what that would mean, as opposed to getting clear about the when, where, what specifically, and success criteria. So when you're thinking about defining what it is you want instead, define it in clear, bounded, and ideally sensory specific terms. Why sensory specific? Because it allows your brain to dial in on, okay, I've got it. I know what I'm moving toward, rather than abstract labels that the brain doesn't necessarily have a clear, definitive representation that it can move toward. So we've got reflect, define, design. And in design, here we're thinking about designing how we're going to pursue getting that particular outcome. And in the context of yourself, when you're looking at applying it, you're just thinking about, okay, what are some things that would be really useful that I could do that would allow or create the context for me to produce the specific result that I want? So in the context of the person I mentioned previously who was going unconscious and struggling in the area of listening and listening attentively, and that was causing a problem for them, what we helped define and, should I say, design for them there was a strategy for them to create instances of them being attentive and listening well. And one of the tools that we used to be able to do that was to schedule into their phone alerts that would show up at key times after they reviewed and identified where specifically they were having this problem that was causing a major issue for them professionally. So then we're getting into the design element, and in your case, you're going to think about designing. What's the strategy? What are the initial ideas that are, again, coming back to those principles I talked about earlier, that are going to help rewire your brain to form a new neural pathway to get examples and instances down so that your brain begins to pick up the new pattern and, hey presto, forms a new habit. So after going through in terms of design, you want to schedule it, ideally, and in this case with the person I was talking about, we very much scheduled it. It was showing up for them multiple times throughout the day. They were getting prompts. Why were they getting prompts in this case? Because they were going, quote, unconscious, i.e. they were not aware that they were not being attentive and present to their environment. So we used an external trigger, their phone, to be able to schedule in specific times of the day where they would get prompt, and with a simple question: how are you using your attention? What haven't you noticed here? What aren't you paying attention to yet? And that's the beginning of a strategy to help that person develop that particular skill. So in your area that you want to develop and apply the skills, schedule in deliberate times to practice. And it could be a simple 2-3 minutes. It could be a longer period. But what's far more useful to begin with is getting more examples in as quickly as you can in tight order than saying you're going to practice for 1 hour at the weekend and then you miss it, and then you wait another week and you miss that. Do you get it? The quicker you get those instances into the brain, the quicker the nervous system begins to wire it up, the quicker the habit begins to form. Lastly, review. When you've gone through all this and now you're in the process of actually deploying and applying what you're learning, you're in the stage where if it's a key skill, you definitely want to review and identify what's working well, what you need to improve. That's a whole area in itself, this whole review, and there's a whole bunch of really useful questions that I'm going to cover in a future video. But for now, you've now got the overall strategy to be able to get ahead, to be able to apply whatever it is that you want. Go through that 5-step process for yourself. Take an area of your life that you want to improve your ability to learn more effectively, to apply what you're learning. Take on some of the ideas that I shared in this video that were most useful for you. So just take a moment and think about what was most useful. What's one idea that you want to apply right away? And then start applying, schedule it, use it. And if it's important to you and this is something that you really want to develop, I would definitely recommend that you begin to build a system so that it becomes easy, automatic, effortless. So I hope you enjoyed this video. Really appreciate you taking the time to watch. If you have a particular question, feel free to submit it below. I'm going to start creating more videos. It's been quite a while since I've been making videos for various people at NLP Times. I want to do more of that. I've had a bunch of requests come in, and I will definitely look at making more videos in the near future.